When we harm our environment, we harm ourselves. For centuries, we have plundered our planet in the name of progress. Now, we're paying the price with a triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. If our planet were a patient, it would be admitted to intensive care. Its vital signs are alarming. It's running a fever, with each of the last 9 months the hottest on record. As we hurtle towards the 1.5-degree threshold, its lung capacity is compromised, with the destruction of forests that absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. And many of the Earth's water sources, its lifeblood, are contaminated. Most concerning of all, its condition is deteriorating rapidly. Is it any wonder then that human health is suffering when the health of the planet on which we depend is in peril? More frequent and severe weather events cause deaths and injuries, as you know, and damage to health facilities and other essential infrastructure. More heat waves contribute to more cardiovascular disease. Air pollution drives lung cancer, asthma, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Chemicals such as lead cause intellectual disability, cardiovascular, and kidney disease. And drought and water scarcity affect food production, making healthy diets less affordable. Meanwhile, climate change is leading to shifts in the behavior, distribution, movement, range, and intensity of mosquitoes, birds, and other animals that are spreading infectious diseases such as dengue and malaria to new areas. Illegal wildlife trading also increases the risk of zoonotic spillover that can trigger a pandemic, highlighting the importance of primary prevention to reduce risk. The threats to health from climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss are not hypothetical risks in the future. They're right here and right now, which makes health the most compelling reason for climate action. And yet, COP28 in Dubai last year was the first COP to include a day dedicated to health. And I would like to appreciate the leadership of the United Arab Emirates on this. The causes of this crisis are multi-sectoral. So too are its impacts, and so too must be our response. Collectively, we got ourselves into this mess. Collectively, we must get ourselves out of it. No single country and no single agency operationalize a One Health approach. One Health is one of the important issues that WHO member states are now discussing as part of their negotiation of the new pandemic agreement, ahead of the World Health Assembly in just 12 weeks' time. I urge you all to voice your support for the agreement. Your work this week will have a direct bearing on the realization of a One Health approach. And I welcome the 6 areas Executive Director Inge has outlined in her report in which countries can take more effective, inclusive, and sustainable multilateral action. In particular, the resolutions on air quality and chemicals, waste, and preventing pollution are important for driving sustained multi-sectoral action to protect the health of people and planet. We would also like to see health reflected strongly in the new agreement on ending plastic pollution. In this and many other areas, WHO remains committed to supporting all countries with evidence-based technical tools, including our air quality guidelines, the Global Framework on Chemicals, and the WHO Chemicals Roadmap. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, the patient is in peril, and the patient is our planet. Band-aid solutions will not do. We need transformative action. We must transform our energy and transport systems, our food systems, our health systems, and we must transform, especially ourselves, to break out of siloed mindsets and work for effective, inclusive, and sustainable multilateral action, because we have no other choice. For everything that makes us different, we're one species, sharing the same DNA and the same planet. We have no future but a common future. I thank you. Asante sana. And finally, I would like to take the opportunity to appreciate President Ruto's leadership and commitment to universal health coverage, and also for hosting UNEP, one of our excellent agencies, and also for hosting this assembly. Asante sana, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Tedros and the Director General of the World Health Organization for this statement. And I think one sentence will resonate with us for the next couple of days. The physician treats, nature heals. Thank you. The Assembly will now hear statements by heads of states and governments. I now have the absolute honor to invite His Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenyan Defense Forces, to address the Environment Assembly.
Thank you very much, Madam Leila. Your Excellency, Madam Leila Ben Ali, President of UNEA-6. Your Excellency, Paula Naves, President of Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Your Excellency, Abiy Ahmed Ali, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and my guest who is on a state visit to Kenya. Your Excellency, President Hassan Sheikh, President of Somalia. Your Excellency, President Eric Mokwetsi Masisi, President of Botswana. Your Excellency, President Ismail Gele, President of Djibouti. Your Excellency, President Brice Oligui, President of Gabon. Excellencies, Vice Presidents, Prime Ministers, Heads of State, Honorable Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Kenya. During the third Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, which was held here in Nairobi last November to develop a global plastic treaty, I promised in this very hall to abolish visa requirements for anyone coming to Kenya. I want to announce here that we did exactly that. And we did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, because Kenya hosts the only UN headquarters in the global south, the largest UN headquarters in the world, and also that Kenya is the home of humanity. And therefore, to require anybody to get a visa while going home is not fair. And that is why I take this opportunity to welcome all of you home. Welcome home. The 6th session of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, UNEA-6, convenes under the theme that aptly captures the essence of what we need to achieve. Given the magnitude and the urgency of the existential crisis that humanity and life on our planet is grappling with, only collective action at the multilateral level that is effective, inclusive, and sustainable will enable international community to tackle climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Fortunately, we are now aligned in terms of the need to move together rapidly in order to catch up with and overtake this crisis. We are propelled by the momentum of the 2023 COP28, which took place in Dubai last November and concluded on a hopeful note with a number of historical decisions. First, COP28 emphasized that simultaneously transitioning away from fossil fuels while tripling renewables and doubling efficiency is a collective priority. Second, it positions resilience and adaptation at the center of climate action, clearly defining the limits connecting nature, health, agriculture, and food system chains, as well as peace and security. If there was ever any doubt, COP28 confirmed that climate change is no longer to be seen as an abstract concern residing in distant future, but a real and present danger that requires urgent collective action from all of us. This distinguished assembly, UNEA-6, is the first intergovernmental global meeting after COP28. This places upon this assembly a tremendous responsibility to expeditiously deliver on its agenda in full and thereby demonstrate the power of international cooperation and effective multilateralism. This is a challenging task, which is complicated by the fact that nations of the world are also grappling with a dynamic complex of interconnected and multifaceted threats, risks, uncertainties, and shocks ranging from a sluggish economic growth, conflict and wars, and geopolitical fragmentation. This situation is exacerbated by an alarming climate change trend, whose implications are now impossible to ignore. Record-breaking temperatures on one end, catastrophic droughts and floods, escalating sea levels, landslides, rampant wildfires. If anybody watched TV last night, we were witnessing huge wildfires in the US, severe cyclones which have become frequent and familiar in many regions worldwide. Science is unequivocal that human activity are the primary catalyst for this phenomenon. Consequently, as humankind, we are faced with a critical decision to radically alter our course or persist on the current path, endangering our very existence. Undoubtedly, we collectively appreciate this predicament, yet our track record on course correcting is mixed. On one hand, undeniable progress has been made on several fronts. At COP28, we operationalized the Loss and Damage Fund to support economic and non-economic losses and damages associated with adverse effects of climate change in climate-vulnerable developing nations. At the same time, the adoption of the coming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework was pivotal in defining the actions that must be taken under and within this decade in order to curb biodiversity loss by 2030 and set the planet on a path of restoration and recovery. I welcome the progress being made in the ongoing negotiations for a legally binding global agreement aimed at ending plastic pollution, including its detrimental impacts on marine environment, because it brings us closer to mitigating humanity's collective vulnerability to a monumental crisis. These highlights outline the various positive developments and are an eloquent statement to the collective determination and strategic foresight which now inspired our multilateral endeavors. On the other hand, it is important to point out that incremental steps are no longer sufficient in the face of rapidly escalating threats. We are off track and off target when it comes to fulfilling critical parameters on many indicators of action and delivery. Despite increased awareness and efforts, global greenhouse gas emissions are still on the rise. Pollution patterns are veering in an alarming direction, and biodiversity is confronted with multifaceted and escalating threats, along with the risk of an accelerating rate of loss. No economy, community, or nation can tackle these challenges single-handedly with any hope of success. Nevertheless, for all of us, all the work must begin at home with effective domestic measures. Kenya, the government of Kenya has instituted a comprehensive institutional framework to anchor decisive interventions across numerous sectors, including energy and pollution, forest conservation, and critical landscape restoration, agriculture and food systems, as well as nature and biodiversity. The aim is to proactively reverse the impact of climate change and promote the resilience of our people and our economy. I invite you to find time and visit some of the projects in Kenya to witness the passion, the commitment, determination, and ingenuity of our people and what they bring to these endeavors. The understanding that the people are invested in climate action agenda and that our policies and strategies must make space for their effective participation has inspired the emergence of a bottom-up climate action paradigm in Kenya, complementing our bottom-up economic transformation agenda. I take this opportunity to express gratitude and appreciation to all our partners, led by the leadership of the UN system, for supporting us in driving this agenda. I also invite you to mobilize your national leaderships as well as the leadership of various institutions in your countries to partner with us in global cooperation as a matter of great urgency. From experience, we know that the existing multilateral system is not up to the task. It is imperative for us to confront this truth with honesty and rectify glaring deficiencies which impede effective multilateralism. Our reform agenda must begin by attending to fundamental structural dimensions to realign multilateral institutions with core values of the international community, including sovereign equality and effective democratic representation as the basis of enhanced effective and inclusivity. If we fail in this critical endeavor, multilateralism in its present state might falter, struggle, and collapse in the face of dire global crisis, overwhelmed by pervasive distrust, skepticism, and disengagement. The time has come for us to find and apply the levers of transformational change in order to address multiple priorities simultaneously. Last September, Kenya and the Africa Union Commission convened the first Africa Climate Summit here in Nairobi. The summit culminated in the Nairobi Declaration on Climate Change and Call to Action, which set out our vision as Africans for climate-positive economic growth and development on our continent. The summit recognized that our continent has the fundamentals to spearhead progress along a path compatible with effective climate action by serving as a cost-competitive industrial hub with the capacity to support other regions in achieving their net zero ambitions. It also called for the urgent reform of the global financial architecture to rectify its current deficiencies and modernize the entire system to meet the development needs of the majority in the 21st century. African countries and many other developing countries pay significantly higher costs, up to 5 times more than others, for our debt. Those seeking investments in private projects face high costs of capital driven by real and imaginary risks. These arbitrary, unjust, discriminatory, and unequal state of affairs is untenable given the pressure of time, limited resources, and the imperative to actualize a fairer and more inclusive development and responsive global governance. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, international collaboration is crucial in promoting the adoption of the reduce, reuse, and recycle life cycle approaches to waste that are vital for sustaining the blue economy and its ecosystems. Kenya's response to ban single-use plastic has proved effective. To build on this progress, we are implementing the Green Economy Strategy and Implementation Plan to shift waste management to a circular economy. I urge the global community to advance towards a climate-neutral, resource-efficient, and circular economy. We commend United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, for its role in the intergovernmental negotiations for the Global Plastic Treaty. Building on this achievement, and in line with promoting efficiency and effectiveness, I urge the global community to support Africa's position that the Secretariat of the treaty be headquartered here in UNEP. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I have reasons for it. The current global environmental governance remains fragmented despite the historic agreement at the Rio+20 conference, which calls for the consolidation of headquarters functions in Nairobi. This governance fragmentation leads to policy inconsistencies, overlaps, inefficiencies, and wastage in the administration and implementation of multilateral environment agreement. Addressing environmental issues in this manner diminishes efficiency and effectiveness, undermining our ability to make meaningful change. Therefore, UNEP, as the global body with a mandate to set the environmental agenda, must enhance policy coordination, integration, and coherent implementation of the agreements while honoring each mandate. Likewise, UNEP should provide regular and robust platforms for exchange of information, knowledge, best practices, and lessons learned among multilateral environmental agreements and stakeholders, fostering consensus and enhancing the science-policy connection. With these important mandates in mind, I note with concern that financing from the UN regular budget and voluntary funds remain insufficient for UNEP to effectively deliver. And I am happy Dennis Francis is here with us, that you will consider at the UN General Assembly the requests that have been made by UNEP on modernizing the facilities here. We are very proud that this compound where we are today is the largest UN compound on earth. Here, we have 140 acres donated by the people of Kenya because we believe in what UNEP is doing. We would expect a lot of support from the rest of the UN community to make this facility a truly environmental headquarters of the globe. I therefore urge the UN General Assembly to secure new, substantial, and reliable funding from its regular budget to provide consistent and sustainable support for UNEP's crucial work. Additionally, I appeal to donors to increase their voluntary contributions, recognizing the urgent and vast scope of current environmental challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have 6 years left to deliver on the UN 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Unless we collectively undertake radical positive action, we are on course to fail. The obligation falls on each one of us to clearly identify their role in order to define our contribution to this collective endeavor. Each of us must challenge ourselves and one another to unleash and harness our collective creativity and solidarity. May the decisions and the discussions and engagements in these sessions mark a significant leap forward in this vital goal. As I conclude, I have been informed by the chair that most of the meetings have taken very long, sometimes ending at 2 a.m. in the morning, sometimes at midnight. You have done a very good job, and you deserve some holiday after this meeting. I just want to give you some hints on where to find a place to enjoy your time after this very committed service to humanity. One is that about 10 or 15 minutes from your hotel room is Nairobi National Park. You can visit Nairobi National Park. I, however, want to warn you that we have a fence around the Nairobi National Park, but sometimes the lions break out. So in the event that you meet a lion on the streets, please be careful. They are wild. Let me give you another hint that if you thought it's only humans who elect members of parliament and have a legislative body, I invite you to go to Naivasha, and you will find a phenomenon called the baboon parliament, where baboons meet regularly at a particular place, at a particular time, and they discuss their legislative issues. And if you have a bit more time, you may want to go to Masai Mara, where we have the wildebeest migration. And this migration is much more orderly than the human migration. They know how to cross borders, and they know how to move without causing any environmental damage. And if you have a bit more time, please travel to Lamu, and you will have an opportunity to watch the swimming lions there. And finally, you may want to watch another migration called the whales migration in a place called Tana River. So, you have ideas on what to do after this conference. And I wish you very fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President of the Republic of Kenya for this statement and also for the holiday hints in Kenya. I'm sure this assembly will need a lot of that. Please allow me to take this opportunity to extend on behalf of all delegations our sincere appreciation to the people and the government of Kenya for their hospitality and for being champions for the environment. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Mogwitsi Eric Masisi, President of the Republic of Botswana, to address the Assembly.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellencies, colleague heads of state and government here present, Your Excellency, President of the 78th General Assembly, President of the United Nations Environment Assembly, President of ECOSOC, Executive Director of UNEP, the Director General of WHO, Deputy Executive Director of UNEP, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I wish from the outset to extend my gratitude to His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, for inviting me to this auspicious summit and for the gracious hospitality extended to me and my delegation since our arrival in this green city of Nairobi. We are convened here in the beautiful city of Nairobi to collectively address the critical environmental challenges facing Mother Earth today, with a view to creating a coherent system of international environmental governance. The importance of a healthy planet for human progress and prosperity is highlighted in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This global concern is underscored by a sharp awareness of our degraded planet as a result of the three planetary crises of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, pollution and waste, as well as other global environmental challenges. The net effect of these problems and challenges is that they pose limits on the attainment of the desired and most optimum levels of human well-being and prosperity, thus creating obstacles to a better future for all of us, now and for our posterity. Madam President, only through collaborative action can we hope to safeguard the diversity of life on Earth and secure a sustainable future for generations to come. The urgency of this task calls for global cooperation and commitment to ensure the resilience and well-being of our precious planet. Similar to many countries worldwide, Botswana is not immune to prevalent global environmental challenges. These challenges are largely linked to various factors, including socio-economic development evidenced by the expansion of the industrial sector, mining activities, commercial centers, and the ongoing urbanization within the country. They are also coupled with shifting lifestyle patterns and consumer habits, which serve as significant driving forces for environmental degradation, most typically being littering. Madam President, I must hasten to add that in responding to the global call for action on planetary survival, Botswana has taken steps in the right direction. In this regard, we are making significant strides towards transitioning from coal-fired plants for generating electricity to embracing alternative renewable energy sources. As part of implementing the energy policy and renewable energy strategy, my government has made the decision to increase renewable energy penetration from 2% to 30% by 2030. This will be achieved through the implementation of solar photovoltaic, concentrated solar plants, and wind energy projects, and will double the nationally determined contributions target to show raised ambition. Madam President, in 2021, the Government of the Republic of Botswana approved the Integrated Waste Management Policy with calls for a paradigm shift from the linear to circular economy concept, which promotes waste recovery, reuse, and recycle. By turning waste into an economic good, we will not only be addressing environmental challenges, but also socio-economic factors through job creation and income generation for the communities, thereby allowing nature to recover. Furthermore, Botswana is reinforcing its commitment to a circular economy by developing the waste management value chain roadmap to enhance the understanding of the circular economy concept and business opportunities in the waste value chains. This necessarily entails investing in waste recovery, recycling, and the reuse infrastructure and awareness outreach campaigns to promote proper waste disposal and recycling practices nationwide. Madam President, pollution is a serious matter that does not only threaten the environment, but is also a threat to both human and animal health because of the interconnection of ecosystems that are habitats to people and to animals. As a country, we are cognizant of this issue, and some of the work we have done include the development of a strategy for management of electronic waste and working with the Dental Association of Botswana on the elimination of mercury in dental amalgam. The elimination of mercury is in line with the Minamata Convention in recognition of the pollution threat that the chemical poses for the environment. Madam President, I'm also proud to emphasize that 40% of Botswana's land area is dedicated to conservation. This commitment underscores our nation's dedication to preserving biodiversity, ensuring the conservation of vital ecosystems, and contributing to global efforts to safeguard our natural heritage. And that is why it's no accident that you find the largest herd of elephants in the world in the wild, in Botswana. Botswana, like many other developing countries, requires significant financial resources to build climate resilience, mitigate the impacts of climate change, and transition to a low-carbon economy. In a quest to bridge the biodiversity finance gap, one of the commercial banks in Botswana has launched the first ever sustainable bond in the Botswana Stock Exchange, amounting to about $3.6 million. This private sector initiative will go a long way in supporting sustainable development and growth. Madam President, recognizing the efforts that Botswana has done and is continuously undertaking, it is in this context that Botswana pleads with developed countries to fulfill their financial pledges under the Climate Change Convention so that developing countries like yours and mine, can access the funds and vigorously implement projects that enable sustainable development for planet Earth. During COP28, held in the United Arab Emirates in December 2023, we adopted the Loss and Damage Fund, and pledges have already been made by various countries. I urge those countries to honor their pledges in order to assist those greatly affected by climate change to assess and the much-needed resources for adaptation. Botswana and other Southern African countries are experiencing prolonged periods of drought and extreme temperatures that will surely have negative impact on the food security of our countries. Therefore, action is needed now. Excellencies, in my capacity as the chair of the Global Water Changemakers, we launched a high-level panel on water investments for Africa plan on the 2nd December 2023 during COP28, which aims to assist countries to mobilize at least $30 billion annually by 2030 for the achievement of water-related SDG targets on the continent. The Water Investment for Africa Plan proposes to mobilize at least 30% of the $30 billion from institutional investors, pension funds, and innovative finance. This campaign aims to close the water investment gap in Africa for the achievement of the water-related SDG targets. In this respect, I encourage the private sector to play its part in supporting the efforts made at addressing water and sanitation challenges throughout Africa. Mr. President, Madam President, another string to my climate action bow is that I am also the Africa Climate Mobility Champion. This initiative seeks to generate data and analysis, as well as mobilizing political support for locally anchored solutions to anticipate and address climate mobility. Excellencies, distinguished guests, last but not least in importance, in my capacity as the global chair of the Group of Landlocked Developing Countries, LLDCs, it will be remiss of me if I don't seize this opportunity to urge the deliberations to also give eminence to the countries with special situations that bear the most pressure as a result of the three planetary crises of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, pollution and waste, such as the landlocked developing countries, the least developed countries, and small island developing states. These nations are not just vulnerable, they are also left behind. They need support to uplift their people, create jobs, and foster sustainable growth. Therefore, I urge all of us in the similar spirit to stand in solidarity with the LLDC's agenda through a reinvigorated global partnership and support for the group. I hope to meet you in Kigali this June as we adopt a new ambitious and forward-looking program of action for the next decade. In conclusion, Madam President, let us collectively ensure that the legacy of responsible environmental practices transcends borders, leaving a permanent mark on the well-being of our planet. Through shared responsibility and collaborative actions, we can strive to create a sustainable legacy for generations to come. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the President of Botswana for his statements. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Ismail Omar Gele, President of the Republic of Djibouti, to address the Assembly.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Monsieur le Président, Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Mesdames et Messieurs, je voudrais de premier abord remercier le Président RUTO et le peuple kényan pour l'accueil chaleureux qui a été réservé à ma délégation depuis notre arrivée dans cette belle ville de Nairobi. Ensuite, permettez-moi d'adresser mes vives félicitations au président de la conférence qui vient d'être élu. Mes remerciements s'adressent également au secrétariat de l'ONU Environnement pour avoir travaillé avec abnégation en vue du bon déroulement de nos réunions. Notre monde fait face à de nombreux défis environnementaux, notamment le changement climatique, la perte de la nature et de la biodiversité et la pollution, sans oublier la désertification, la dégradation des terres et des sols, la sécheresse et la déforestation. Nul besoin de réitérer que la plus grande menace est manifestement le changement climatique. Les causes du réchauffement global sont connues. Elles sont rappelées constamment au sein de nos forats. Elles sont expliquées et prouvées scientifiquement. Une option car elle détruit la crédibilité face à la crise climatique. L'inaction n'est pas une option car elle détruit la crédibilité et la solidité du multilatéralisme et du système international. En effet, après maintes accords et engagements, les financements multilatéraux restent en deçà de nos besoins d'adaptation et d'atténuation aux changements climatiques qui sont de plus en plus considérables. Nous devons agir maintenant et avec détermination et ambition si nous voulons atténuer les effets du changement climatique et de construire un avenir durable pour tous. En dépit de notre contribution marginale au réchauffement global, Djibouti s'est résolument engagé dans un développement sobre en carbone en mettant en œuvre des projets d'énergie solaire, éolienne et géothermique. Nous avons également mis en place l'interconnexion électrique avec l'Éthiopie afin d'importer l'hydroélectricité. Nous avons aussi créé un observatoire régional du changement climatique. Le deuxième défi auquel le monde est confronté est celui de la perte de la biodiversité. La biodiversité est bien plus qu'une simple collection d'espèces vivantes, c'est le fondement même de notre existence. Des forêts luxuriantes aux vastes océans, chaque écosystème abrite une diversité d'êtres vivants, interconnectés, jouant un rôle vital dans le maintien de l'équilibre écologique. Les activités humaines irresponsables telles que la déforestation, l'urbanisation incontrôlée, la pollution et l'exploitation excessive des ressources naturelles compromettent l'intégralité de nos écosystèmes et mettent en péril la survie de nombreuses espèces. Nous sommes les témoins des conséquences dévastatrices de cette destruction. La disparition accélérée d'espèces animales et végétales, la dégradation des habitats naturels et les perturbations croissantes dans le cycle écologique. À cet effet, Djibouti a adopté un arsenal juridique conséquent. Nous avons aussi créé plusieurs aires protégées. La mobilisation et mené des actions de reboisement. La mobilisation des ressources financières internationales est indispensable pour mener des actions durables en faveur de la biodiversité. Enfin, la pollution plastique affecte maintenant tous les océans de la planète, menaçant les écosystèmes marins qui sont indispensables pour le développement de la pêche et du tourisme. Ce fléau est d'une telle ampleur que seul un effort mondial permettra de résoudre ce problème. Nous espérons à cet égard qu'un accord international sur le plastique sera prochainement adopté. Les conséquences de ces défis environnementaux se font sentir, entraînant des impacts irréversibles pour les êtres humains et les animaux. Ces enjeux non seulement compromettent les progrès de développement obtenus avec peine, en particulier en Afrique, mais entravent également nos initiatives globales visant à réaliser les objectifs de développement durable. Pour conclure, il est important de préserver et de renforcer le multilatéralisme afin de relever les différents défis auxquels nous sommes confrontés. Aucune nation ne peut résoudre seule les problèmes d'une ampleur mondiale. Seul un multilatéralisme réformé et renforcé sera en mesure de faire face aux défis auxquels l'humanité est confrontée. Nous souhaitons à ce titre que cette 6e session de l'Assemblée des Nations Unies pour l'environnement adopte des décisions renforçant le multilatéralisme dans le domaine de l'environnement. Je vous remercie. Voilà. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président de la République de Djibouti, pour votre discours. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Brice Oligui Nguema, President of the Transition Head of the State of the Gabonese Republic, to address the Assembly.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République du Kenya, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée générale de l'Organisation des Nations unies, Madame le Président de la 6e session de l'Assemblée des Nations unies pour l'environnement, Madame la directrice exécutive du Programme des Nations unies pour l'environnement, honorables délégués, Mesdames et Messieurs, en prenant la parole devant cette auguste assemblée, je faillirais si je ne m'acquittais de l'agréable devoir d'exprimer ma gratitude à son Excellence le Président Dr William RUTO, dont je loue la vision politique ainsi que l'engagement dans cette quête commune d'une meilleure humanité. Et au peuple kényan pour la chaleur fraternelle de l'accueil réservé à la délégation gabonaise. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, l'humanité fait face à une triple crise environnementale à laquelle nous devons apporter